And if it does bother you, you should probably take a good, long, hard look in the mirror and find out why that is. Greetings, loved ones, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Hi, my name's Ash. It's nice to meet you. I am an adult entertainer living in Los Angeles, California, who also happens to be a certified yapper, thus brings you here to my channel today. I would like to apologize for the hiatus over this past year. I have been going through a lot of changes and a lot of struggles with my physical health, mentally, that have just hindered me from making content, but luckily I am going on the up and up on my health journey and am receiving the care that I need to continue to keep my brain and my body healthy and to be able to keep making content here for you guys. For a moment there, I was really feeling like Oscar from Fish Tales. Like, there's rocks, there's whale poo, and then there was me.
There's rocks, there's whale poo, and then there's you.
That's messed up.
But luckily not feeling like that today, and hopefully not for the foreseeable future. So I'm back and better than ever and ready to hit this new year running with some interesting topics, getting the podcast going again, getting the YouTube channel back and off the ground, and of course continuing to make the content that I make every day for you guys to enjoy. So call me Johnny Gilbert because I have a hot topic to talk about today. That being the fetishization of alternative women and the role that sex workers do or don't play in the unfair harassment that women receive day to day who are alternative, that are not sex workers. As an adult entertainer who, for the larger part of my life, has identified heavily with the alternative community,
cut my life into pieces!
This is a really prevalent topic in my comments, on my For You page, in my day-to-day life, and I really want to talk about it. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions that we can unpack here today. A popular opinion that a lot of people online seem to have is that sex workers that are alternative ultimately harm other alternative women just because they happen to be sex workers. Once again, the failures of these predatory men has been unfairly pinned on women who happen to be sex workers, and instead of holding the people who perpetuate this and do harass these women, instead of holding them accountable, we are pinning the blame onto sex workers, bullying them and harassing them, while the perpetrators walk blame-free and continuing to harm these women. Contrary to my last video where I discussed the role adult content creators played in the sexualization of minors, which is a video that I made last year, you guys should go check it out, but the blame does not fall on us this time. I'm simply going to plead my case, share some facts and some research that I have acquired online, and hopefully you learn a thing or two. But if you don't, and if you disagree with me, feel free to leave a comment, educate me, or feel free to degrade me in the comments. I'm an adult entertainer. I can take it. I'm going to debunk some popular opinions on this topic, as well as explain the intertwined, extensive history that sex workers have played within the alternative communities, and make the overall point that sex workers have always been involved in alternative subcultures, and that we should not be blamed and harassed for the failures and behaviors of others. I'm sure every person that identifies with alternative subcultures and communities at some point has been called a poser, especially women. If I took a shot every time someone asked me to name 3 songs, I would be hospitalized for alcohol poisoning. Name 3 women that feel safe leaving their drink unattended around you. A point that a lot of these comments I've seen online like to make is that sex workers who also happen to be alternative are simply faking it to make a quick buck. Like, yes, I'm very certain that these women have permanently tattooed their bodies, have spent thousands of dollars changing their hair, collecting wardrobes, getting body modifications and piercings, a lot of things that are permanent, simply because they want to make money off of it. I highly doubt that anyone would permanently change their body forever if they did not enjoy the aesthetics and highly identify with them. Being any type of entertainer where your image is your job requires a lot of confidence. This is especially true for sex workers. And a lot of us alternative people never feel more confident or empowered than when we get new ink, a new tattoo, when we dye our hair a new color, or when we get a new outfit that really identifies with our style. Those things make you confident. Our image is our job, And it's really important to feel confident with the content that you're creating. And I personally never feel more confident and sexy than when I customize my character, okay? Someone who does not enjoy the aesthetics of alternative subcultures is not going to feel confident looking like Morticia Addams. If you put my very Catholic mother in some black lipstick, she's gonna be calling the Vatican to make her appointment for an exorcism as soon as possible.
The power of Christ compels you.
Does it, Jay?
The power of Christ compels you.
Is the power of Christ compelling me? Is that what's happening?
The power of Christ compels you.
Guess what? It's not that compelling.
Jay?
Being a poser pointer is so high school. You cannot gatekeep eyeliner and My Chemical Romance. These things are very popular and enjoyed by many. I would even argue that there are many sex workers that are not alternative and don't identify with any of the communities at all and are very popular on OnlyFans or other adult creator platforms. And the top 50 for 2025 adult content creators, most of them are not alternative. You don't have to make such extreme commitments like tattoos, piercings, body modifications just to succeed in adult entertainment. Like Ari Krista, Camilla, Sophie Rain, like these are some of the top creators of 2025, and they're not alternative. Yeah, maybe they have a couple of tattoos, but they're not identifying with, you know, goth, emo, punk, grunge, anything like that. Ash, it's not just about aesthetics, it's not just about the looks, it's about the shared views and belief system. I am well aware that being alternative has to do with shared beliefs and values, and it's not just the aesthetics and how you dress. If you catch me glancing at my phone, it is simply because I wrote this script, but when I am put on the spot to film, I suddenly forget anything I've ever learned or written in my life, so please bear with me here. But some of the shared belief systems and opinions that alternative subcultures share is anti-conformity, individualism, skepticism of authority, emphasis on anti-discrimination, anti-bullying, freedom from censorship and government interference, valuing emotional vulnerability, honesty, opposing social norms, etc. You know who's a marginalized group of people who deals with government interference, discrimination, harassment, bullying, who feels outcast from society and deals with these struggles every day? Sex workers. And I would argue that creating art with your sexuality is one of the most vulnerable and emotionally honest things you can do. Overall, alternative spaces are supposed to be a safer and more socially accepting environment where people feel free to explore their identities. It's supposed to be a non-judgmental space where people who feel outcasted from society can come together and find community and family. And today, the community has entirely turned its back on sex workers from a lot of the discourse I've seen online, completely forgetting their intensive and extensive history with them and the influence that sex workers have had on the community in general. Sex workers have influenced alternative subcultures and communities far more and for a lot longer than a lot of people might realize. Starting with one of the most obvious things, I think, would be fashion. Sex workers like strippers, street workers, burlesque dancers literally wrote the fashion handbook for the alternative community. Things like fishnets, leather, PVC, corsets, platform heels were originally associated with fetish clubs and strip clubs. Things like neon lingerie, cage outfits, body harnesses were borrowed from fetish dancewear and BDSM worker communities, and since have been adopted into goth and punk styles. These are symbols of sexual autonomy and rebellion. My favorite example of this that a lot of people might not know is that Demonias, the iconic boot worn by every goth or emo punk out there, is a sub-company of its parent company, Pleasers, which is iconically known for being the stiletto stripper and adult dancer heel of choice, and is known for its primary use in strip clubs and S&M dungeons. Many alternative scenes actually grew out of shared spaces with sex work venues. Strip clubs often hosted early punk, drag, and goth shows when mainstream bars refused to host them. Erotic cabarets often provided early stages for queer and avant-garde performers. Sex work venues were often the only places that tolerated queer individuals, fetish wear, and styles adopted by alternative subcultures, as well as radical art and loud experimental music. Sex workers did more than just influence. They actively gave these subcultures a place to grow and thrive freely without judgment. That's why when you go into a lot of these widely known goth clubs, you'll see go-go dancers, burlesque performers, drag performers, and even dominatrix workers. Sex worker rights movements often overlapped with many alternative political spaces. Anarchists believed in supporting the decriminalization of sex work. Punk and riot girl activism stood up for bodily autonomy, as well as queer liberation movements, where sex workers were major organizers of. Anti-policing and anti-surveillance politics were often shaped by the criminalization of sex work. These communities used to work hand in hand, paving the way for our current generation. That's why it's really so heartbreaking to see the communities breaking apart and have the tables turned on sex workers, especially now that it's been majorly popularized online by platforms like OnlyFans, Fansly, Sex Panther, and just overall being more popularized on social medias and the internet. And many iconic artists of early alternative subcultures were either sex workers themselves, performed alongside them, or were advocates for them, and definitely took inspiration from sex worker aesthetics. This influence is especially strong in industrial, fetish music, dark burlesque, punk, riot girl, and even queercore. Sex workers literally brought in the performance methods, costume design that have been adopted into these subcultures today. Sex workers helped normalize a lot of the things that are adopted into alternative subcultures today. Things like fetish culture, BDSM clubs, kink events, body modification, non-traditional gender presentation, which definitely bled into goth, industrial, EDM, metal, punk, rave, and queer culture. What was once underground and stigmatized or even taboo became adapted and integral to a lot of alternative subcultures today. Overall, sex workers and alternative subcultures have had a very intertwined history, and that seems to have been long forgotten by a lot of people online, at least from what I see. What started out as groups of outcasts and marginalized people coming together to support one another and create amazing art, fashion, and music has now been boiled down to the harassment and bullying of sex workers and blaming them for the unfair treatment that other alternative people receive that aren't sex workers. The fact of the matter is, a lot of these subcultures do borrow aesthetics and politics and identity from sex workers. And instead of recognizing this as artistic expression and a political statement and just your expression of your individualism, some people will immediately sexualize them, wrongfully so. The style is expressive. It is never an invitation, and predatory people will misinterpret that and use it as an excuse for their predatory behavior. And men that are misogynistic will use stereotypes like, oh, they're damaged, or they're adventurous, therefore more sexually expressive, or that they're rebellious and therefore sexually available, or that they're damaged and vulnerable and easy to take advantage of, or they just don't respect you, therefore your boundaries don't matter. These people's treatment of alternative women is a punishment for not performing traditional femininity. Having tattoos, piercings, colored hair, and dressing outside of the norm isn't performing femininity in a soft and conventional way, and these predatory men find that so very threatening to their very existence. Their unfair harassment becomes a way of asserting control over women that don't conform. I'm sure you've seen red pill podcasters talk about their idea of traditional femininity and what should be sought after and rewarded, and then alternative women are quite literally the exact opposite of that, and that is very threatening to these predatory men's fragile egos.
Septum piercings, at best it's a neutral, but for most men it's a negative. So I'd say same with tattoos.
I want to put bumper stickers on a Ferrari, and I believe that to be true mostly for women. Some tattoos can look okay, but me personally, I don't like a woman who has a lot of tattoos. Overall, I think it looks masculine.
This is the reality. A lot of men don't like a really made up woman. Seriously.
I don't like makeup.
Same. Yeah.
Not a fan.
Not a big fan. Be no second date.
And I feel like because I'm saying the word men a lot here, I have to preface, clearly, I am not speaking about all men. I am speaking about the men that harass alternative women, and this should not bother you if you are not one of those people. And if it does bother you, you should probably take a good, long, hard look in the mirror and find out why that is. And unfortunately, women who stand out are treated as targets in society. Simply being visibly different draws more attention, good and bad. Many harassers just target whoever they see and who stands out the most. Another thing that plays into this is the stereotypes about mental health when it comes to alternative women.
If you meet a girl who has tattoos, know that she is crazy. No exceptions. Yeah, I used to think that maybe a girl with tattoos wasn't completely insane. The girls that have like tattoos all over their chest, for instance, you know that they're crazy. Did it with those girls who put tattoos on their thighs, right? And forget about, putting a tattoo on your face, okay? You put a tattoo on your face, you're just screaming out to the world that you are fucking out of your mind, that you have zero impulse control, zero taste, and that you're just basically a fool.
They're seen as damaged, broken, vulnerable, attention-seeking, needing validation, and overall vulnerable. Predators exploit these myths in order to harass and manipulate alternative women. What I would like to see as we grow in a society and grow within our alternative subculture families is that we stop turning on each other and remember who the real enemy is.
Remember who the real enemy is.
These people are not your enemy. We all have one enemy.
Especially in today's political climate, it is important now more than ever that we stick together and continue to make the progress and stand up for what we believe in as alternative communities. When groups of social outcasts and minorities and stigmatized people come together and fight for what we believe in, beautiful things happen, and we need that now more than ever. Turning on each other is distracting us from what's going on right in front of us every single day. It's important that we stand together for what we believe in and our original mission as alternative subcultures and communities, and that we get back to business because we simply have much bigger fish to fry. I highly recommend you guys check out some of the resources and things that I've put in the comments where a lot of my research came for this video. I'm sure a lot of them can speak on this more intensely and more educated than I can. I'm simply trying to get the ball rolling on the conversation, raise some awareness, and hopefully change some minds when it comes to people's views of the sex worker community, especially alternative women who happen to be sex workers like myself, because we're a part of the community too, and we want to be respected as people and welcomed into the community with open arms as we welcome others. I hope you guys liked today's video. I hope you learned a thing or two, and I hope that you guys like and leave a comment and subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff because it really encourages me to keep going and keep making content and keep being creative. So thank you guys so much to everyone who supports my platforms, and I will hope to see you soon with another video.